In the cold, infinite expanse of space, where time feels suspended and the universe stretches endlessly, a single man made history on March 18, 1965. His name was Alexei Leonov, and he became the first human to step outside the safety of his spacecraft and into the emptiness of space. But what should have been an incredible milestone, a moment of pure triumph for humanity, quickly became a fight for survival, a life-or-death struggle that almost ended in tragedy. Before we step into the dark void with Leonov, we must understand the stakes. This mission, part of the Soviet Union's Voskhod 2 program, was an unprecedented feat of bravery and technology. The idea of a human stepping outside of a spacecraft, tethered only by a lifeline, was pure science fiction just a few years earlier. And yet, in 1965, it became a reality. Alexei Leonov, a trained cosmonaut and pilot, was prepared to make that historic step. The eyes of the world were on him as he prepared to float into space. Leonov was no stranger to the harshness of space. He had trained for this moment for years. The Soviet space program, driven by a fierce competition with the United States, had turned its attention towards spacewalking, or EVA, extravehicular activity. The pressure to succeed was immense. The Soviet Union was determined to stay ahead in the space race, and Leonov was the man they had chosen for the job. The moment arrived. After the Voskhod 2 spacecraft reached orbit, Leonov was ready. He was suited up in his bulky spacesuit, a technological marvel in its own right, but still limited by the standards of the time. The suit was designed to protect him from the vacuum of space, from the extreme temperatures, and from the dangers of radiation. But there was a flaw that would soon become apparent. It was too tight. Leonov, heart racing with excitement and fear, unclipped the hatch to the spacecraft and slowly, cautiously floated into the void. For a brief moment, everything was quiet. The hum of the spacecraft's systems faded into nothingness. The Earth below, beautiful and blue, seemed so distant, almost unreal. There he was, suspended in the infinite blackness of space. He was alone. But the silence of space quickly turned to panic. The suit, which had fit snugly on Earth, now felt constricting. As Leonov drifted further from the spacecraft, his heart pounded harder. His breathing grew labored. The suit began to expand due to the lack of pressure in space, and Leonov's movements became more and more restricted. The visor of his helmet fogged up, making it nearly impossible for him to see. He floated there, tethered to the spacecraft by a thin cable, but the connection between him and safety was growing weaker with every passing second. His life depended on the success of this spacewalk, yet the conditions were working against him. The tension of the moment was unbearable. Leonov, ever the professional, fought to stay calm. He had trained for this. He had been taught to trust his instincts and rely on his training. But no amount of preparation could have fully prepared him for the isolation, the suffocating pressure of being completely alone in the cold expanse of space. In those moments, the vastness of the universe became overwhelming. Leonov was no longer a man in a spacesuit. He was an infinitesimally small dot in the grand scheme of the cosmos. Alone. The mission's objective was clear: to test the feasibility of spacewalks for future space exploration. But Leonov's own survival was now uncertain. He fought to stabilize his suit, to reduce the pressure on his chest, but the more he struggled, the more his body refused to cooperate. The situation grew direr as he tried to return to the spacecraft.
Hey there. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our exciting adventures. Now let's get back to the mystery.
His heart thumped in his chest, each beat echoing in his helmet as his breath came in short, panicked gasps. He tried to pull himself back toward the hatch, but the tether between him and the spacecraft seemed like it was growing longer and longer, pulling him farther into the black abyss. The Earth, once so vibrant and welcoming, now felt distant, unreachable. The seconds felt like hours. Every move he made felt like it was pushing him further into the unknown. But then, just as panic began to grip him fully, Alexei Leonov did the only thing he could think of. He made a decision. He unclipped himself from the spacecraft. If he could free himself from the tether, he might have enough room to maneuver. But that decision came at a cost. Without the safety of the tether, Leonov was no longer securely attached to anything. The idea of returning to the spacecraft seemed almost impossible. He was suspended in the middle of space, floating. No longer connected to the craft, no longer connected to the world he knew. He fought against the urge to panic. The training kicked in again. Leonov remembered the exercises he'd done, the drills. His survival depended on staying calm. He realized that the only way to return to the spacecraft was to adjust his position and decrease the pressure on his spacesuit. Slowly, painfully, Leonov used all his strength to pull himself back toward the hatch. The pressure was unbearable and his vision began to fade. His thoughts, though sharp, were clouded by the panic that gnawed at the edges of his mind. It seemed impossible. But Leonov was determined. He pulled himself inch by inch back to the hatch. His muscles screamed in protest, but he ignored them. The darkness of space, the silent void around him, was closing in. But he refused to surrender. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached the hatch. But this was not the end of his struggle. Leonov realized that the hatch was not wide enough for him to pass through. His suit was too bulky. The once reliable design of his space suit had now turned against him. He was trapped again. His breath quickened, his heart racing once more. But Leonov did not give up. He managed to squeeze back into the spacecraft, with just moments to spare before the situation became truly dire. As the hatch closed behind him, the coldness of space was shut out, but the terror of the experience remained. Alexei Leonov had survived. When he returned to Earth, the world hailed him as a hero. The Soviet Union celebrated his achievement, and he was lauded for his bravery. But the true cost of his spacewalk was known only to him. The months that followed were filled with physical and emotional recovery. Leonov had faced death in the vacuum of space, and the memories of his struggle stayed with him long after he had returned home. The story of Alexei Leonov's first spacewalk was one of incredible triumph, but it was also a story of hardship, fear, and survival. It was a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, human resilience can overcome the most terrifying of circumstances. The struggle of that single man floating in the void was not just a personal victory, it was a victory for humanity. Leonov's incredible spacewalk became a symbol of courage, determination, and the will to survive. His journey into the cold, empty void of space was not just a mission of exploration, it was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. As we reflect on Alexei Leonov's brave steps into the unknown, we realize that the story of his spacewalk is not just about a moment in history, but about every person who has ever faced the vast, uncharted spaces of their own lives. It's a reminder that even when we feel alone, even when the odds seem insurmountable, we can still find the strength to reach beyond the stars. This is the incredible tale of the first spacewalk, and the man who almost didn't make it back.